Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Welcome to Dig on America, where we speak truth to power. Every week, we give you the dig on how American history, policies, and media created the social and political issues we face today. DOA is independent media supported by listeners, but they'll tell you we're just fake news, deep state propaganda, funded by George Soros, the Clinton Foundation, BLM Marxists, and
Otto Octavius.
Oh, good one. Good one. Damn it. Now it's messing up all of mine. I should have went first. Wedge Antilles.
Oh, I like Wedge Antilles. He didn't get enough screen time in the last episode. Like 1 second.
Yeah, he's the only one that made it through all the other movies who wasn't a main character.
Great shot, Joe. That's his only line. And for those of you, so what we do there, Josh and Anna, is we have our fake sponsors of the show every week. It's usually someone from pop culture. So because of course everyone says that we're, the deep state propaganda network, because we talk about things that they don't like. Anyway, so we're here again. Welcome
And there's
back.
all that Soros money that we take.
Yes, our Soros checks. So here's the truth. We do get funded by George Soros. We just haven't gotten the check yet. We've been waiting. We know it's coming. There's no doubt it's coming. It's on its way to Josh.
Mhm.
Like the billions are on its way to Josh. George has been a little slow lately. Okay, he's getting up there. Him and Joe Biden are both 494 years old. So he'll get to it. We're gonna be swimming in money.
I've already started spending mine. So as soon as that comes in, it's definitely gonna level out my books.
I've mortgaged the remortgage of the remortgage. Okay, so that money is coming, baby.
That money is spent.
So welcome into the Back to Dig on America, second hour of the show. If you are a audio listener, thank you for listening on audio. Last month, we broke our record for most audio listens at over 1,200 listens per episode.
Dun, dun, dun.
Which by like 6, we only broke it by like 6. But still, hell, it's still a new record, and we're already off to a great start this month. So we're already halfway to where we were last month. So I don't know why you people are listening, but you're listening. I wish you would support.
What you mean, you people?
Yeah. What do I mean? What do you mean, you people?
You people listening to us.
Are we cool? No, we're not cool. But we're already halfway to where we were last month. So. Now, it'd be great if you guys would support the Patreon too, but hey. Anyway, so we're back with we're back with Josh Price, who's running for Secretary of State in Arkansas, and we're back with Attorney Anna, our new legal correspondent, who I'm super excited to talk to right now. So we're going to do two things in this hour. We're going to do the dig on the filibuster, but first we're going to talk with Anna specifically about what's been going on with the confirmation of Judge Brown Jackson. I always want to say Judge Joe Jackson still because I'm an idiot, right? And I watched that show like for years. I thought it was great. Yes, Mikey.
You forgot.
What did I forget? Oh, yes. Okay. But I was going to get to it. So calm down. Mikey is reminding me to do something that I was not promised I wasn't going to forget. I promise, swear to God. Scout's honor. All right. So as we get started, we will talk with Anna about SCOTUS. But before we do that, let's get to know her a little bit. As I call an audible, Mikey Famine 99.
Zero.
Said Hood. Zero ain't got no more toys, said Hood. All right. Anna, we're going to ask you 4 questions. You will give us 4 answers.
Okay.
Mikey, you go first.
Damn it. All right. If you could go to any concert, I'm giving you 2 tickets and use of my time machine. Which concert are you going to?
Michael Jackson.
Good answer.
The Thriller, whatever Thriller tour he did, any concert.
Good answer. That's a strong answer. That's my answer, actually.
Okay.
I need to see the people passing out. Like I see it on YouTube, but I need the experience. If you have a time machine.
You just point and laugh like.
No, I just need to see like what happened. Like, why
Watch.
exactly are you fainted right now?
I bet you $10 his glove catches on fire right here. and then the glove catches on fire. All right.
Hey, yo, we're not going to talk about the Pepsi incident ever again. How dare you?
Oh, yeah, the Pepsi incident. That's right. That was Pepsi.
That was a commercial.
Yep. There was rumors like that the kid who was in it was breakdancing and split his head open. People would do whatever just to dog that guy.
It's all crazy.
Yeah.
All right, my question is this. What is the worst someone actually had to be trying to pick you up? What is the worst pickup line you've ever heard at a bar?
No. I've never ever thought about the worst. But I'm 6 feet tall.
The most
You
memorable.
can't really tell. Most memorable, I don't know. I'm 6 feet tall, so I've heard all type of pickup lines about, can I climb the tree? I'm the same height as you laying down.
Oh,
Tall women jokes, stuff like that. So that's
Real
probably
creative.
just the first thing that comes to mind. But I'm sure I've heard plenty of bad stuff. So
that's. I apologize for men. We're trash sometimes, especially when we're drunk.
Well,
sorry.
I don't disagree with you. Can't say I disagree with you guys.
All facts.
All right, hold on. Quick follow-up question. What's the shortest? What height was the shortest guy who ever hit on you?
Oh, whoever hit on me?
Yeah.
Oh, like, I don't know, like 5'3", 5'4". A lot of shorter guys that are very confident men,
I'm shooting that shot. If I'm a short dude,
are you 5'3"?
I used to be. I'm 6 foot now.
Me too. Me too.
I'm 6 foot now, but yeah, I had my short man phase, and I was like, "Yo, I ain't scared of nothing. Get up in here."
Yeah, that's usually the attitude.
Let me get over here and get my heart broken real quick. I got something to do.
I haven't been rejected in 30 minutes. I'm due for some rejection. Josh, give her your pickup line.
No, he gets to ask a question.
Yeah, get that. You get to ask a question. Go ahead.
Bury this man's career.
All right, let me think. All right.
It's easy till it's not.
It's easy till it's not. Okay. I mean, this is corny, but people always ask that. If you had one political figure, living or dead, that you could have dinner with, who would it be?
Go on.
It would probably be Shirley Chisholm. A lot of people don't know, first Black woman in Congress and first Black woman, African-American woman to run for president. And there was a really good series, I believe, on FX just about the women's liberation movement and things like that. I forget the name of the show, but she was one of the central figures in the show, along with Phyllis Schlafly, who was like her arch nemesis, if you will. Yeah, I think she would have been a really cool figure to meet, one, because she's a Black woman as I am, but also because some of the things that she was able to do as a Black woman at that time with even less rights and liberties than we have today, Black women. So, still a very powerful figure, still able to get things done in a lot of places and change the lives of a lot of people, and for me today. So I would love to have met her. In second place would also have been Thurgood Marshall, because a friend of mine bought a book for me called Emancipation, The Making of a Black Lawyer, and it just kind of details his history, how he got into it, how he got other Black folks into law, the legal system, again, at a time where the rights were really restricted and curtailed. And it was very difficult. It is still very difficult to ascend through law as a person of color in general, but especially at that time. So he's another person that I would have liked to have met, especially because Clarence Thomas is on the bench now. And I would just have questions about his opinions about that as well. So
yeah, he was a great replacement for Marshall. Well, I'm going to nominate someone exactly like him. Well, in one way. All right. So Mikey got to ask Josh 2 questions. So I'm going to ask you 2 questions.
Okay.
Fine.
Big Haas is not here today, but he's a cigar smoker. So I'm just going to ask you, it's probably a yes or no question. Have you ever, or do you frequently enjoy a cigar? Or
Cigar? No. So I tried a cigar at a friend's wedding, almost died. I'm pretty sure my lungs almost fell off, and that was the first and last time that I tried it.
Haas, if Haas were here, he would say, no, look, when I'm in town, you got to come over. I'm going to get you a perfect cigar. Is mild. I got you. Don't worry. All right. So
I feel like all the
said
cigar smokers say that. Like they all say you're not doing it right. I'm like, no, I think I am. I think I'm got a little chest hairs now. Like I'm pretty sure.
It's like, but I don't want to smoke cigars. No, you'll love it. I do not want this. No, hold on. Let me get you one.
Once you get into that, the problem is once you get into that life, and this goes for men and women, once you get into that cigar life, they'd never take a picture without a cigar.
Mm-hmm.
Well, cigars, I mean, they're kind of like cool pictures. Like, you know what I mean? Even if nobody's smoking, it's just you just having it. It's
but
like
not on LinkedIn.
That's to the aesthetic. Well, no, I don't know about LinkedIn.
Or his profile or Josh's campaign poster. Vote Josh. All right.
Or maybe give him out at the voting lines and then see how many folks stay for the cigars.
Vote for Josh cigars. All right. So we will get I see what was going on there. Little statickiness. All right. So let's go. I'll tell you what, Attorney Anna, why don't you just take the mic here for a minute and talk about what's been happening for those who have. Now, I will admit, I have not watched much of this. I haven't had a lot of time with work and podcasts. So catch us up on what's going on. We see a lot of stories about some of the silly questions and the obvious racism. I'm waiting for the birther scandal. I'm sure that's coming around the corner. But just catch us up on what's been going on, and we'll start with that.
Sure. So on the Supreme Court, one of the justices, I believe Justice Breyer, just announced a retirement, which opens up a vacancy on the United States Supreme Court. And as people probably remember with Justice Amy Coney Barrett and Justice Gorsuch from a few years before that, that means that President Biden, has to appoint somebody to fill that vacancy once it happens. And then there's a whole process that gets started, and where the Senate is and where all the mess, if you will, comes up at the Senate, the Senate confirmation and that process. So just to kind of give a brief overview of what happens, first there's a presidential appointment, but even though the president appoints, the Senate has to confirm that appointment, and they go through a series of processes to do that. The first thing that happens is the nominee will go through the Senate Judiciary Committee, and that particular body is within the Senate. It's made up of a group of I believe 22 senators from both political parties, and they essentially conduct a background investigation. They conduct pre-hearing investigations, look over documents, look over this nominee's former opinions, what they did when they were at different places on the federal bench, if they served on the federal bench, and essentially looks over their background. And at that point, or after that point, they hold a public hearing, which was the part that we saw on TV, where all of the senators and the Senate Judiciary Committee get to ask certain questions of the candidate and to see what their political leanings are, how they would rule, what they think certain laws are. What they think certain laws are, or should be, and what they think, how they think the court should come down. And basically, this whole process is for them to try to see, if you were in that position right now, how would you vote? What would you decide? What are some of the things that we can gain from talking to you in this moment that we can try to project about how you might do on the bench? And after that public hearing, then the Senate Judiciary Committee issues a report, and they report its findings, and then they make a recommendation to the full Senate body. And so the recommendation from the Senate Judiciary Committee for Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, is it Brown Jackson? Stop. Sorry about that. I don't know if you guys can hear that.
Listen, is Ted Cruz in your apartment right now dressed as a dog? Do we need
Could be. I don't know.
safe
If you guys
word.
can hear the going, it might be. Might be.
What kind of dog is it?
I have a Portuguese water dog.
Oh, cute. Curly
He's
hair?
really cute, but yeah, he's really cute, but really smart and just so, you know.
Bring him up. Bring him up on the screen.
Yeah.
he
Give us
bring 'em
Oh,
up.
you want to say hi? Come here.
That's why he mad. He
Oh,
didn't get
come
no
here.
air. Oh,
No, there he
There
goes.
he
Look at that guy.
is.
He's giant.
He's a medium-sized dog. He's about 45, 50 pounds. So he likes to jump and stand. But anyways, so going back, so the Senate Judiciary Committee will make an advisory opinion, and then they'll put it to the full Senate body to make a vote. Now, for Judge Brown Jackson to be confirmed, she will only need 51 votes. And that's a departure from before Amy Coney Barrett during the Neil Gorsuch time, where at that time it needed to be 60. But at that time, because the Republican senators were in power, they nuked the filibuster for the SCOTUS nominees to ensure that Judge Gorsuch could be confirmed, because it was looking at that time like he wasn't going to be confirmed with 2/3 at 60. So now we only have to have 51. And as the numbers look like they are, it looks strongly or substantially likely, I would say, that Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson is going to be confirmed. A few notable Republican senators have already stated that they would vote for her, that being Senator Lisa Murkowski, Senator Susan Collins, and Senator Mitt Romney. So that's where we are.
It's the predictable three.
Usual suspects. The usual suspects.
so
where we heard the crazy questions from like Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz and all these other type of figures was really during that public hearing where everybody could, all the senators could kind of say whatever they wanted to say. And sometimes that part of the confirmation process is more about the senators trying to throw meat to their base, or really trying to get their base enthusiastic or not enthusiastic about whoever the candidate is, which is why you saw some of the silly questions that Judge Brown Jackson had to answer, like why she would ever represent people as a public defender who have been accused of crimes. Go figure, you're a public defender, that's what you do. And other things like that, about her religion, racism, all type of stuff. They've asked her a lot of different questions during that public hearing part of the process.
Josh, do you have any? Do you have a question you'd like to ask about the SCOTUS confirmation process that maybe has been bugging you?
Yeah, actually, I do. And I'm asking you this for your expertise as a Black woman. But I've seen the memes, and I've talked to some of my Black female friends about, they're like, she's having to, basically prove herself, and even though she's very qualified, clearly, and they're like, every time I see that pursed mouth or that raised eyebrow or that clenched jaw, they're like, I know this. They're like, we've had to go through this. And I have to say, I could probably understand it to a small extent. Being questioned, especially growing up in Arkansas, looking the way I look, it's like, where are you from? Where are you really from? Sometimes you go back to where you came from. But one thing, and I have to say, I count as a privilege, is being Asian American. Nobody ever really questions, let's say, my intelligence, right? Because Asians are known to be, quote unquote, smart. So just seeing her having to keep that composure in the midst of all those really crazy questions, how did you feel about that? And were you able to identify with that in your personal career, and when you were in spaces where you felt like you were being questioned or challenged?
Yeah, I think myself and most of the Black women lawyers that I know, we all kind of saw ourselves in her. One, because of some of the, for me, I was able to I had the opportunity to watch the full confirmation hearings of Judge Kavanaugh. I was able to watch most of the confirmation of Judge Amy Coney Barrett, and I was able to see a substantial part of this Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's confirmation, and the difference in the type of questions really just stood out to me the most, because a lot of them were not fact-based. A lot of them tried to question her opinions, her written opinions, that is, without context. Like, they would read just certain parts of the record and she would have to go in and clarify this was the situation, or there was a certain line of questioning as to why she represented basically why she represented criminals. And notably, I believe that Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, if confirmed, would be the first person on the Supreme Court of the United States who has ever served as a public defender. The overwhelming majority of people who ascend to the federal judiciary are prosecutors.
Right.
I mean, I think that kind of says a lot about the people that we think are important, even though both prosecutors and public defenders are government attorneys, like they both are, but she would be the first one. But to your question, Josh, some of the questions that she had been asked reminded me of questions that myself, other Black women, or other people of color in general get asked when people have a jaundiced eye when they look at you in the first place. Like, when they look at her, even though she checks so many boxes that so many other people on the court have checked, and boxes that no one on the court and no one in the history of the court has been able to check. She went to the Ivy League law school. She went to the Ivy League undergrad. She served as a public defender. She served in all these roles. She did all of these things. She actually tried a case. Justice Amy Coney Barrett never even tried a case. And to me, as a litigator, as somebody who goes in court, it's kind of disturbing to me that somebody who really is unfamiliar with how to conduct themselves as an attorney in a courtroom is elevated to the highest court in the land, where they're going to be deciding issues of criminal procedure, civil procedure, and things that govern us as attorneys and govern the criminal justice system. Some of the questions I thought were very inappropriate. I know that they're not going to age well, but Lindsey Graham in particular, because I was able to see his line of questioning. This thing that strikes me about him, and he has already stated that he's not going to vote for Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, or vote to confirm her. He voted for her to ascend to the bench. Like, he was one of the people that allowed her to advance, and he had no problem with her record at that time. So between now and then, nothing has changed, except now that she's going on to fill a seat that, certain members don't want filled. So I really thought that was fascinating. And also her composure throughout the whole thing. It's like, as the Black woman, as somebody who has to be aware of what's going on and how you look at all times and how people are going to perceive you, because there's 30 cameras in your face. There's crazy senators, asking you very dumb questions, a lot of them that don't even have to do with law. Nobody ever asked Justice Barrett what a woman was, or who a woman was, or who they should be. Or Kavanaugh, and I don't even want to get on Kavanaugh, but nobody asked him that question. And I remember even going to a conference where I heard from Christine Blasey Ford, one of Justice Kavanaugh's accusers, where she was just talking about how aware of herself that she had to be at those hearings, because all these cameras are present, and even more so when you're going to ascend to this court. So just to kind of put a bow on it, I did see myself. I saw a lot of other people. I saw that the age-old adage where you have to be twice as good to be considered for even half of what it is. And for her to be as credentialed as she is, if she were a white man, if she were a white woman, I don't think there's any doubt that she would have not been subject to some of the idiocy that we saw from certain senators.
Right. So, well, and thank you for your thoughts. And I definitely could identify some kind of threads of institutional racism woven into their comments and remarks. And you're right, some of them are very inappropriate and off-putting. And to the statement you said at the end, to put the bow on it, and I hate this for the Asian community, especially the Filipino community, but most of the Filipinos I know that were second generation born here in the States, they don't speak Tagalog. They don't speak their native language of the Philippines because their parents wanted them to assimilate and blend in so well. They're like, I
Right.
don't want anyone to question your accent or your ability to
Right.
speak English. So you're only going to learn English and you're not going to learn this other language. And I think that's such a shame. You know, it's such a shame that you have to give up. I mean, you could learn, I mean, clearly people can know 2, 3, 4, 5 languages, but to feel like you have to divest yourself of your culture and your language because you may be judged. And I mean, I remember that growing up. My mom would say, hey, Josh, I need you to speak, you know, better, more articulate, clear English than any kid you're in school with because you're going to be questioned. You're going to be questioned. And I heard that all growing up. Oh, you speak great English. You know, how old were you when you learned English? How old were you when you first learned how to speak English? But yeah, I totally get it. And I just really appreciate the comments and the thoughts. I've been watching Judge Brown Jackson's hearings, and I've just been kind of amazed and shocked. And I'll text my friends, especially my Black female friends. I'm like, what do you think of this? So thank you for your thoughts.
Yeah, it's odd because I was watching CNN and one of Ted Cruz's former law school professor, got on and was just talking about how he was embarrassed, frankly, to have to have had this guy as a student, because he was like, he wasn't really a remarkable student, but all of a sudden, and the thing that really is frustrating about for me is that a lot of these senators know better. You know, like, it's one thing for somebody who does not have a legal background or does not have a legal education to ask certain questions, because, you know, maybe a lot of it is pandering, but maybe some of it is honest to God ignorance. Like, maybe it is.
They
But
don't know no better.
Ted Cruz is someone who worked Gore versus Bush. He worked that case. He knows how these things work. He knows the law. He knows how certain processes are to play out. So he asks intentionally ignorant questions, really not even for the answer, but just to ask such a flagrant question. And the same thing with a lot of them, like Lindsey Graham, they all know better. And especially Lindsey Graham, he's been doing this thing he's been in Congress longer than I've probably even been alive. So, like, you know, certain things, they know better. And that's really what is such, is just such a violation to me, is that they know better and they know that the populace does not know better.
It's not like they're Marjorie Taylor Greene, who probably doesn't know better. You know?
She probably, you know, a lot of it's ignorance, but a lot of it is, she's not a lawyer, so there's some things she probably really just does not know. But Ted Cruz he knows better. He knows better, and it's a shame. It really is a shame.
So a lot of the the two things that seem to come into play with her the most, I'd like you to just speak on real quick. Number one is, well, Biden shouldn't have narrowed it down to a Black woman. He should have picked the best person, even though Trump said just not even a year and a half ago, I will pick a woman. And Reagan said he would pick a woman with Sandra Day O'Connor. And even though he didn't say it out loud, pretty obvious that Clarence Thomas was really replacing Justice Marshall. That was a behind closed doors thing where they were like, hey, we're gonna do this for the optics, right? But just speak it to, if you would, on the idea, because if you ask me, like, the Black women that I know who are educated, and, like, here's a fact for you, Black women are the most educated demographic in the United States of America. You have to be overqualified just to be in this position, right? So that's the number one thing. If you could kind of speak on that, but also the whole thing with, like, where they're saying, well, she's giving lenient sentences to pedophiles. You know, that's the narrative right now, right? So if you could just talk on those two things for a minute, I would appreciate it.
Sure, and I'll take them in the reverse order, just because the last one kind of sticks out to me. So judges have to follow sentencing guidelines, and there are recommended sentencing guidelines. Now, judges have full discretion to issue whatever sentence they think is appropriate. And so a lot of times it's common practice for judges, if a person, let's just say, has a child sex offense, whatever it may be, whether it's like, you know, actual assault or some type of other sexual offense, If there's actually no pornography involved, no child pornography, sometimes judges will exercise the discretion to give lighter sentences or more lenient sentences than individuals who maybe are creating child porn or trafficking in child porn or etc. And so basically I say that to say that the sentences that Judge Brown Jackson was handing out were not any different than those of her constituents. But again, the general public is not going to look at all of these opinions, and they're not going to see what the overwhelming majority of judges do or how they sentence or the statistics behind that. So when you're a senator who can take advantage of that ignorance of the populace, you can kind of throw that out there and just say, well, you're just being light on pedophiles, and you're being light on child porn, and you should have done more. But the reality is that they have other members of Congress, and I'm not even going to say who, but there are members of Congress who are accused of dealing with underage individuals.
Oh, don't worry, we'll say who.
We have not heard of people about those folks. We also just had Republican Representative Josh. What is his name? Josh Hawley come out and say that he's been invited to orgies and drug orgies.
Oh no! That was
constituents.
That was Madison.
I mean Cawthorn. Yeah. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to say Hawley. Cawthorn. Yeah. Yes. So we've heard some of that. So it's fascinating to me, but I think that that's something that with anybody you can kind of cherry pick, because you can take advantage of the fact that people don't really know what they're hearing. They don't have anything to compare it to. If the senator and everybody on TV says she's being light on pedophiles, what am I going to look up to say that she isn't? Other judges, like, I don't know, you know what I mean? We're only talking about her. So I think that that's one thing that they're able to cherry pick and take out of context. But to answer your other question, for her qualifications, yes, Trump did openly say that he was going to pick a woman. Same with Sandra Day O'Connor. Same with Clarence Thomas. And Clarence Thomas's confirmation was interesting because he said something that I think during his confirmation that I think was intended to shame the white senators into confirming him, which was basically that certain references to his sexual misconduct, particularly with Anita Hill, was tantamount to a public lynching. And I think that term lynching, when used in connection with Black people, is going to elicit and evoke certain types of emotion. And if you're a person who is concerned about your public interest, I think if you're a white senator, the worst thing you can do is be called racist by somebody who might potentially ascend to the United States Supreme Court. So yes, looking at those and comparing it to Judge Brown Jackson, the difference is that she's a Black woman. And I think that that's where intersectionality kind of comes into play, because for a white woman, the benefit that she has, even though she's a woman, is that she's white. And so white people might be able to identify with her. For Judge Clarence Thomas, he's a man, and certain men, unfortunately, can identify with potentially being accused of sexual misconduct and things like that. And also, it's good optics to have a Black guy on the Supreme Court, because now he's replacing Thurgood Marshall. But when you talk about the polarized time that we live in now, and coupled with the fact that Biden announced the fact that he was going to choose a Black woman, and Democrats kind of held his feet to the fire on that, so he did that. People are now starting to say like she's an affirmative action nominee or some type of diversity nominee, when really she's more qualified than most of the members on the bench were at the times that they were confirmed. So it's really unfortunate. But again, when you have to do twice as much to be considered for half the stuff, you get what we saw at her confirmation hearings.
I have a question. So do you think, I mean, I'm not president yet or king of earth yet, but should something be added to the Constitution that kind of not forces, but kind of directs it into a more, where there's more fair representation of public defenders and prosecutors, since it's, you know what I mean? Because I think that those are two very different kinds of people. And you know what I mean? Like, is there something that should be implemented so that it is more representative of both sides of the law and not just prosecutors?
So I think it should be considered, but the difficulty in all of that is that these folks are appointed by the president. And so when you start trying to, even though well-intentioned, start trying to put regulations on top of that, you start to curtail the executive powers, which one of the executive branch powers is that the president gets to nominate people for the judiciary, and then the Senate gets to confirm them. So when you start putting limitations like, well, they have to check this box, and they have to check this box, and they have to check this box, it starts to curtail what the executive branch can actually do. So I think, yes, there should be additional considerations or maybe some advisory guidelines. If you're a president, maybe you should consider someone who has certain qualifications or has certain background and what have you. But let's just say, for example, prior to Justice Marshall being appointed to the bench, what if they had a rule that said we're only going to appoint white people to the bench? And in fact, the history of the Senate confirmations for the Supreme Court was that they didn't even start until, and I can't remember what year, but these confirmation hearings didn't even start until the first Jewish person was nominated to the Supreme Court, and he was not a white male. And because he was Jewish, they were like, well, maybe everybody should hear from him. Like, that's how all of this even started. So, awesome. You know, it's well-intentioned, but I don't know that would be particularly.
I mean, when I'm king of Earth, I will appoint good people. So, I mean,
I can't wait for that day.
We won't have to do this at all. We can totally skip this. And then for like her question, if you can remember, like what was one of her best responses, and what was the worst question that she got?
No, I can't say the worst question. I think
to you,
to me. Let me think. Best response. She actually had a lot of good responses for a lot of stuff. So it's hard to single out. But one thing that's really coming to the top of my mind is how she got around one of the questions. I believe it was Lindsey Graham's question about her religious beliefs, where I think he flat out asked her if she was a Christian or like if she was religious, and basically how her religion,
church, and all that.
How many times she went to church, like all of these type of things. And I remember being offended because I think like Josh pointed out, the pursing of the lips, the raised eyebrows, like, yeah, I don't know that I would have had the same composure and grace that she had I been asked stupid questions like that. Because I believe
she could just lose her temper like Kavanaugh, right?
I know, and drink some beer. Yeah.
Haven't you ever had a beer, Senator Klobuchar?
Yeah, that was
me and Ski.
That was crazy. That was. I saw that. I couldn't believe it. I to this day I can't believe that he's on the bench. But anyway, I think one of her best answer was to that, where she was saying that she was religious, but she didn't want to disclose, how she personally and intimately dealt with her faith, because as a judge, you're supposed to put that aside and judge based on what the actual law is. And that is what you're supposed to do. But I think that in a setting like that, it's easy. It's all emotionally charged. So it could have been easy for her to just go off the rails at that time and just kind of fire back at him or say, right. It could have been a trap. And I thought that she really gracefully got out of that. The worst thing, I don't know if this is the worst thing that I've seen in my life, because we've seen a lot of things in the last like 6 years that's just like a never ending loop. But one of the worst things that I saw was when Ted Cruz had his staffers put up pictures of the How to Be an Anti-Racist like toddler book. And I just thought, this is the hill you want to die on. You want to die on and he also asked her how she felt about critical race theory, CRT, being taught in schools. And she gave another eloquent answer, which she was like, I'm not aware of what is being taught in every school district in America. I'm not a school administrator, which is like, duh. But I thought that Ted Cruz has been so determined to make an ass of himself for the last since Trump, well, probably before Trump, but I don't even think I was really paying attention to Ted Cruz until he did the whole Trump thing.
Yeah. Raphael.
It was just insane. But I just remember thinking how not even just how offensive the questions themselves were, but imagine you are a judge and you devote your entire life to the legal system only to potentially sit on the highest court in the land for somebody to ask you what a woman is, how you feel about critical race theory being taught in schools that you have no idea about, and being shown pictures of anti-racist baby books of someone that you may have met in passing. And I just thought it just really minimizes it. I thought it minimized the moment. And I really hated that she had to experience that. But that's what we experience. That's what Black women experience in this profession, frankly, where people kind of minimize your success or minimize your expertise because of who you are, what you look like.
They just can't get past the running from the phantom of critical race theory. It's like Thanos, you know.
It is coming for you all.
I want to ask you about a couple of quick things that have nothing to do with the SCOTUS.
And you better pet that puppy. You better pet him.
By the way, on the audio, you're hearing the tap dancing puppy. So here's the lesson of the day.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, play with them.
No, that's fine.
Make him happy.
We used to care. We don't care anymore it's fine. We all have dogs. We all have kids. I've had a half naked kid run in front of
my God.
Well, that's cute though.
But I'm going to be half naked in front of the screen soon.
No, that is probably illegal.
I quit. I quit.
But Ted Cruz will definitely confirm me though. Still,
I draw the line at Dutch's naked tummy.
This is a
don't
keg.
Do it.
Before I asked you the questions about a couple of other quick legal things, and we'll wrap this segment up. What do we have to look? Just kind of give us like the roadmap. What's the next couple of things that people should pay attention to with this with these confirmation hearings?
So really just how the senators talk about it, how they're projecting, how they're going to vote. Like I said, it is only required for her to have 51 votes to be confirmed. So in the event that it's 50-50, which it very well could be, given that there's only 3 Republicans willing to vote for her, Joe Manchin could go anyway, maybe some other Democrat senators too. So this might be a time, one of the rare times where Vice President Kamala Harris has to get involved potentially. So that's one thing to potentially look out for. And really, other than that, just we have to just start paying attention to what the Senate processes are. So like I said, just a few cycles ago when we had Justice Gorsuch, there used to have to be 60 senators to confirm a judge to the SCOTUS. But now you only have to have 51. And it's like, what changed? But if you weren't paying attention to that and you weren't paying attention to how Senate Republicans nuked the SCOTUS filibuster, then I think that might be something that goes over your head unless you're just going on Google. So hopefully we can look forward to having her on the bench, and it will still be 6-3 even if she's on the bench as it is now. But we'll see. Maybe she can actually change a lot of things and persuade some of her colleagues.
I appreciate that. The question I wanted to ask you, there's another court case going on. There are actually 2. One of them I don't know much about, but where Justice Thomas is being asked to recuse himself over some of his wife's opinions. Could you just give us like the elevator pitch on that?
Yeah. So long story short, Virginia Thomas is Clarence Thomas's wife, and I guess she's a pretty well-known Republican rock star, does a lot of activism for them, fundraising, things like that. The problem is that she appeared at the insurrection at the Capitol and nobody really knew what her involvement was, and she tried to downplay her involvement. At some later point, the Supreme Court was asked to consider whether certain documents could be analyzed by the January 6th Commission, to which Trump tried to oppose, and all of the justices, except for notably Justice Thomas, said, okay, yeah, these documents should come out and people should see them. Well, lo and behold, in the documents, his wife, Justice Thomas's wife, was text messaging with Mark Meadows and other prominent Republican figures about potentially overturning the election. And so now that begs the question, can you really be fair and impartial to decide these types of issues if the person who you sleep next to at night was actually there and is confirmed to be involved with some of the things that we're saying are gross and manifest injustices? So that's really the big picture. It's, can he be involved with his wife being potentially implicated by some of the documents that would have come out?
And your opinion is, should he recuse himself or no?
He absolutely should recuse himself. He absolutely should recuse himself. And there's a few bases for recusal, and not to just go into too much legalese, but basically it's when you have some type of interest in one of the parties that you're supposed to be presiding over, because the justices are supposed to maintain some impartiality. So for example, let's say it wasn't his wife and it was a guy that he knew that he invested in that guy's business, and then that business came before the court, he would have to recuse himself because he had invested in that guy's business, and it might look really badly if you come down one way or another, specifically because there was a conflict of interest in you investing in that guy's business. So it's the same exact thing here, where his wife, again, the person that he lives with, has been involved in an attack on our nation's capital, and you're going to be the person deciding how that turns out. So you can't do that. And any lower court judge would recuse themselves, because you can't. But we have been living in, a circus lately. So I don't know what's going to happen. And to my knowledge, there is no precedent for who would have whether Congress would have a check or balance on that. My thought is that Congress could say that he would have to recuse himself. But again, this Congress has not done a lot of things. So I'm not particularly confident that Congress would come together and say that he couldn't investigate when certain members of Congress themselves are implicated in this insurrection. So he should recuse himself, in my opinion.
Very interesting. I appreciate that. Last quick question for you, and before we get to the dig. Trump is trying to get the judge overseeing his case against, now this case against Hillary Clinton is, from what I understand, just stupid, but it's a Trump case, of course. But he is saying that he wants the judge, and get this, guys who haven't heard of this story. Trump is saying that he wants, and actually let me read it from the, let me read from the annals here. For you guys, I believe I took.
I think it's pronounced. No, never mind. You got it right.
Trump lists a huge number of defendants in this lawsuit that he has, including Clinton, the DNC, Mark Alias, Fusion GPS, James Comey, etc. Of, quote, acting in concert, the defendants maliciously conspired to weave a false narrative that their Republican opponent, Donald Trump, was colluding with a hostile foreign sovereignty, it claims, in an apparent attempt to get a court to side with his fictitious no collusion claims. The actions taken in furtherance of their scheme, and this is a quote from the Trump lawyers, falsifying evidence, deceiving law enforcement, and exploiting access to highly sensitive data sources, are so outrageous that even the Watergate scandal pale in comparison. So it just so happens that the judge this is going up in front of, in Florida, happens to have been appointed by Bill Clinton 25 years ago. So Trump is saying that judge should recuse themselves or be removed from the case because he is incapable of non-bias, because Clinton nominated him to the circuit court bench. Your quick comment on that absurdity.
Not going to happen. It's not going to happen. A lot of times, especially federal district courts, the judges themselves get to decide recusal motions, even if it comes from one of the parties saying, I think you have a conflict of interest. If they can articulate on paper and say, no, I don't, that basically is the end all be all. I mean, they could appeal it, but a lot of times it's very rare that this type of argument that's being set forth, oh, well, this particular president appointed you, so you just are incapable of being impartial. It's very rare that type of argument succeeds. And when I first heard about this case, to me, I instantly thought maybe this is a way for him to buy time, because when you file a motion like that, the other party has to brief it, and then the judge has to rule on it, and then all of that takes time because there's certain civil procedure that you have to follow where each party gets a certain amount of days before they have to turn something in, and then they can file something, and then you can file something, and then the judge has to rule on it. So that whole process might take months, and it costs a lot of money, frankly. So sometimes I think that parties file frivolous motions like this, and Trump has filed a lot of frivolous motions that have been called frivolous by certain justices, but I think this is one of them. I think it's grasping at straws to try to just say, maybe get a go forum shopping. But interestingly, in Trump's lawyer's briefing, he never talked about what would happen if his case were before a judge that he appointed. Which is like, okay, so what happens when you get in front of a Trump judge? Is that a conflict of interest still? Probably. Like, you know what I mean? So you're not answering that question. And do you think that that person can be fair and impartial? Because if not, then that would mean that no federal justice, at least below the SCOTUS level, will be able to decide on any of those things. So I think it's just grasping at straws, maybe just trying to buy time. This whole January 6th insurrection investigation is going on, and I think something else to try to divert attention away from that, to try to continue to accuse Hillary Clinton and all the other defendants named of wrongdoing, to distract and divert.
Well, then it'll just have to go to the Supreme Court then. I mean, I guess that's the only way. Because none of these judges can be impartial, so we'll just have to take it to the Supreme Court. We'll just wait until they have a moment.
I mean, and sometimes, and especially for Trump, I don't know if that would be the strategy on this case, but my thought is that a lot of these issues, because he was a former president, fall into a different bucket than they would if it were just me or you or a regular person, because now they deal with presidential powers. What are the power limits of the executive branch? What are the limits of certain activities? How much can we actually analyze? Like, what's privileged and what's not? How are we going to say? So I think when the judge has to consider all of that stuff, it might be a question that is actually ripe for the Supreme Court. Not this particular case, but any of the Trump cases, and that just takes years. And by the time it gets decided, maybe the hope is that people will be past it, or maybe he can have garnered more support by then, or maybe people won't care. We've been seeing it every day on the news for years at this point. Maybe we won't. Maybe we'll be so burned out that we'll just be like, whatever.
I got the soundboard queued up for, ladies and gentlemen, we got him. We'll get you one day, Trump. One day.
Yeah.
I'm not.
All you like.
I'm not keeping my fingers crossed for that one.
I dream the impossible dream.
Josh, we got one more segment. You in? I know you haven't talked much in a minute, but that we've been roused by
it's Anna's
the brilliance of attorney Anna here. So see, I did good. Mikey.
Recruit her to Arkansas to be my deputy secretary.
Oh yeah, recruit me to Arkansas. And Eudora, getting back to my roots.
All right.
My southern roots.